Hi there. Well, we had some major duds and some meltdowns as well. Guys, some happy news, some sad news. Happy news is that we are almost at the knockout stages and things will get far more interesting from here on out. There is far less jeopardy in the group stage of this tournament, where almost every big team makes it through thanks to third place. So now there are stakes. Sad news is that this is Dan Riccio's final video with us for the daily recap, and I'll be flying solo for the rest of the tournament. Honestly, what a guy. Dan was taking the late kickoffs, the midnight kickoffs, and that allowed me to get sleep so that I could get up the next morning at 5:36 a.m. and ensure that the daily recap was uploaded on time. So a big thank you to Dan for his help. We will miss you. Now, in Group I am unsure of how much time to spend on the two matches out of Group I. Both of them made themselves kind of beyond analyzing in their own ways. This match fell apart completely once Iraq got a red card and Senegal just ran away with it. It felt like they would score with every attack in the second half. The Iraqi players just looked completely devoid of motivation. It was a brutal watch. If you watch some of the goals back from later in the game, they just seemed so exhausted. And since they knew they were already out, they just couldn't muster the energy to try to get close to the Senegalese players. They had so much room for some of their goals. And I mean, a couple of them were absolute bangers as well. Habib Diarra with the opener from a corner. Ismail Assar finished off a nice cutback in the second half, and he continued his great performances at this tournament with an assist for Pape and Ndie would combine for the final two goals, 1 goal and 1 assist each in a big 5-0 win over Iraq. 40 years since Iraq last played in the World Cup, and they finished with the same record of 3 losses and 1 goal scored, but a much worse goal difference this time. Senegal weren't great in their first match against France. They started slow against Norway, but looked good toward the end of the game. And they continued their good performance in this game, which of course, it helps when your opposition is playing down a man from the 13th minute onward. But still, I feel like they would have won either way. Senegal, I really hope they are growing and continue to grow into this tournament, and hopefully the 3 points and a positive goal difference will be enough for them to make it through. It should, but we'll see. France versus Norway was a bit beyond real analysis once the lineups dropped. The outcome felt sort of assumed from the start. Norway rested 10 of their starters against France. Maybe we should have seen it coming. After the Senegal win, Haaland was asked how badly he wanted to beat France and basically said he didn't care. He was just happy Norway were through to the knockouts for the first time since 1998, the last time they played in the World Cup. And Solbakken also said that he would rest players. So yeah, hard to pull much value from this on Norway's end. We spent the live stream trying to figure out their thinking, and the logic seems to be they looked at the matchup, decided preparing for Ivory Coast and avoiding injuries to their stars mattered more than this game. Beating France was always going to be a tough task anyway, so why risk tiring or injuring starters? Rest them now. Focus on the next tough match. Some people floated the theory that Norway wanted to screw Sweden over since losing meant Sweden would probably face France, though that's not guaranteed. Could be Belgium as well. We'll see. Funnily enough, France pulled the same move in Qatar, resting their players in their last group game, and Solbakken even pointed to that as something worth learning from. The scoreline ended up being pretty lopsided, but it was tighter than it looked, especially in the second half. Before that, though, we got a Dembele masterclass. Remember how rough he was against Senegal? He improved against Iraq, and in this one, he looked like Ballon d'Or Dembouz, a 32-minute hat trick, the second fastest in World Cup history, putting France up 3-1 with Mbappe assisting the first 2. After goal number 3, he basically stopped shooting altogether. Only 3 shots the entire match, none after his hat trick goal. Dictator Mbappe told him no more goals. Norway's goal was a nice one, Asgard with a body feint to wrong foot Upamecano, then a low strike past Maignan. They had a real shot at pulling closer, but Jorgen Strand Larsen's penalty was poorly placed. A good height for any keeper to save. Late on, Doué headed in a Barcola cross, his PSG teammate, to make it 4-1, and that was the final. So France finished first in the group and now wait to see their next opponent. Norway finished second and will face Ivory Coast. And Senegal also waiting to find out who they'll play. Uruguay versus Spain saw neither team show up in the first half. Spain just needed a draw to likely finish top, likely. Uruguay knew that a loss meant they were out. Alex Baena started on the left again for Spain, Llorente back in at right back, and Spain weren't overly convincing, still not hitting those, top tournament contender levels so many expected from them, including myself. Credit to Uruguay too, they largely neutralized Spain in the first half, limiting them to half chances basically. Even so, Spain looked like the only team capable of scoring. Uruguay showed a bit more attacking verve, attacking life after the Infantino commercial break. A ball played to Darwin, who opted to flick it on rather than shoot when he was right on top of the 6, came to nothing. Shortly after, Spain attacked down the right. A Llorente ball into the box led to Alex Baena controlling it, and as he ran away from the goal, he hit a tame effort at goal, and Muslera somehow let it in. It bounced, but it was so tame, he should have had it. I do feel bad for Muslera. That's 3 goals he's been at fault for this tournament, 3 errors leading to a goal. The bounce was a little funny, but a starting World Cup keeper should be saving that. I felt even worse seeing Bielsa sub him at halftime after he asked him to come to this World Cup. After everything he's done for Uruguay, coming out of retirement for this World Cup, this is likely the end of the road for him, and if so, it's a very sour way to end things. He wasn't the only early sub. Valverde came off in the 56th minute, and Ugarte was subbed in the first half too due to injury. It was not a good day for Uruguay. With their backs against the wall, they did push for a goal, but a lack of quality in the box held them back. Spain stayed dangerous on the counter. You had Ferran Torres hitting the crossbar in the final minutes. That would have put things well beyond them. But in the end, Uruguay lose. So what did that mean? Well, I already said, I spoiled it already. Cabo Verde and Saudi Arabia. Now, Cabo Verde could make it through with a draw, most likely, but a victory over Saudi Arabia could see them finish in the top 2. So a massive incentive there. Saudi Arabia, they could go through with a win as well, but it had to be a win, not a draw. The first half was as if the 2 teams were playing to not lose, which is not a surprise, right? There was a grand total of 7 attempts between them, a collective expected goals of 0.32, so no, not a lot going on in the first half. It was very evenly contested as both defenses operated well, and neither team was playing with a high enough line that counter-attacking football was a possibility at that time. That said, as the match wore on, Alouez was tested quite a few times, and as he has done throughout this tournament, he stood up to those tests. Funnily enough, there was a huge counter-attacking chance for Cabo Verde in the 73rd minute. It really opened up since Saudi Arabia needed a win to continue, right? So that opened the game up, and Alouez made another big save on that counter. It looked like a sure goal. Cabo Verde started getting more opportunities in the second half. Saudi Arabia fell into the Bupista trap. The more the Saudis pushed, the more exposed they were. They just got bubisted. Saudi Arabia had the chance they were waiting for perhaps in the 92nd minute, but scuffed a shot. That's all they could pull off. No match for the mighty Vozinha in goal, especially with his mom in the stands now. He's powerful. Cabo Verde could have won it themselves. Maybe a question of offside with their final attack, but man, they held on, and with Uruguay losing, that means that Cabo Verde finish in 2nd, Spain 1st, Uruguay in 3rd, Saudi Arabia 4th. So Saudi Arabia and Uruguay are out. The chaotic reign of Marcelo Bielsa is surely over, right? It has to be. Spain don't know yet who they are playing, but Cabo Verde, they're playing Argentina. Just incredible for them. But Uruguay, what a huge disappointment. Not a huge surprise though, given how their qualifying campaign started to fall apart at times. All right, guys, for Group G, Dan, of course, took these games on. So for the last time, Dan Riccio, what happened?
Yes, Adrian, Group G had literally everything still on the table. Coming into this final round of matches, Egypt was top on 4 points, Belgium and Iran both on 2 points, and New Zealand still with a chance to qualify on the 1 point. Let's start in Vancouver with Belgium and New Zealand. And the Belgians had underwhelmed through their first 2 matches, scoring just 1 goal and needing to prove that they still got a little bit of that dog in them. And yeah, they definitely showed that. They were all over the Kiwis early on in this match, but it took until the 28th minute for them to find their first goal. An in-swinging corner. New Zealand does a terrible job of dealing with it. Eventually, Trossard is able to poke it home, and that is the first goal of the match. The only thing letting down Belgium in the first half was their finishing, because they had put New Zealand under a ton of duress. Into the second half, and Belgium would start to find their finishing boots as Trossard scored his second few minutes after the halftime break. Kevin De Bruyne scored his first in the World Cup since 2018, and then they would get two more later on. Elijah Just did have his third of the tournament. He made it 3-1 briefly for New Zealand, but it was Lukaku and Salamakers that would close it out for the Belgians, and goals that they would need as they hoped to top the group. 5-1 the finish here. Belgium really impressive in this match. And that's my big takeaway, because we didn't see Belgium anywhere near their talent level through the first two matches. Now we got to see that. And yeah, maybe it's not a team that I think here today can win this tournament, but they look more like a team that can potentially upset one of the favorites further down the line if they continue to play like this and find a little bit more rhythm. Meantime, down the I-5 in Seattle. Yes, just down the road from Vancouver in Seattle. Side note, if you ever want to make that road trip, it is a very picturesque drive. As somebody who's done it a bunch of times, Vancouver to Seattle, Seattle to Vancouver, very nice drive. Both cities are great, but we'll leave it at that. Let's get into the game. Iran and Egypt. This match had a real nervous energy to it to start, and Egypt would take advantage of that. Scoring in the first 5 minutes, Saber was able to put Egypt up 1-0 early on. Iran immediately responded. They would be awarded a penalty. Mehdi Taremi did not score it, though. He was stopped from the spot. Iran would continue to push, though, and Ramin Razaeni scores from an impossible angle to make it 1-1 in the 15th minute. Iran from there would drop into a more defensive posture, surprisingly, and it seemed like they knew 3 points with a 0 goal difference could get them through, and they played like it. Dropping down into that defensive posture became a really physical game. 4 yellow cards were handed out in the first half, 3 more in the second, and it looked as though it was going to be a match that would finish 1-1. But Iran made a late push, and they found a winner, we thought, because VAR actually ruled it out for offside by the slightest of margins. The second goal that Iran has had called back due to offside. They had one in the previous match against Belgium as well that was offside by just the slightest of margins. Iran would continue to push, though. They hit the crossbar at one point. They tried everything they could to find that winner. Did not get it. 1-1 the final. That left the group standings looking like this. Belgium finishing with 5 points and a +4 goal difference. Egypt also on 5 points, but just with the +2 goal differential. Belgium will now wait for a third place finisher in Group A, I, or J for their round of 32 matchup, while Egypt, they get transported into the Argentinian side of the bracket. They will get the Socceroos, a winnable round of 32 match for their first foray into the knockout phase of the World Cup. As it stands right now, Iran has a 92% chance of advancing as a third place team. They're third in this group on 3 points, and New Zealand sits at the bottom. Finally, as I sign off, I want to thank you all for having me, Adrian especially, for allowing me to come in and help him out a little bit with some of these late fixtures in this crazy schedule of the 48-team World Cup. Adrian is doing an amazing job. I don't need to tell you this. There's a reason why you come and watch all these videos. Adrian's doing an incredible job, but not only that, he's built an incredible community. Thank you to the community for welcoming me in and not hating on me too much. I hope you'll join me on the 90th Minute Daily as we continue preview shows Monday through Friday at noon Eastern on the 90th Minute YouTube channel. Thanks again. For the final time, back to you, Adrian.
Once again, a huge thank you to Dan for all of his help throughout the group stage of this World Cup. It was massive. I could actually regain some energy from the pre-tournament push. So thank you, Dan. And thank you for watching. And you can still watch Dan over on the 90th Minute, linked below every day to preview the matches. All right, guys, no daily recap tomorrow, but we will have the preview to the round of 32. All right, later.